The name of this article is The Supermarket Paradox, or Reflections on Level 3 of TROM. Now, a paradox can be loosely defined as anything that conflicts with one's preconceived ideas or notions. An example of a paradox is a man going to a zoo for the first time and seeing a giraffe and exclaiming that there's no such animal. The giraffe clearly contradicts his ideas, his preconceived ideas of what an animal ought to look like. How does this phenomenon of the paradox come about? It comes about when a person's idea or model they have in their own mind of the way the universe is contradicted by the real universe. And it only happens when they don't know all there is to know about the situation that is in front of them. As a matter of fact, there are no paradoxes in this universe. The whole universe jogs along on the laws upon which it's based, upon which it's constructed. The universe will not permit any paradoxes. A thing cannot occur in the universe which is contrary to the laws upon which the universe is constructed, simply because it violates the laws and therefore cannot exist in the universe. So there are no paradoxes in the universe. But there's an awful lot of beings in the universe that have ideas and preconceptions about the way the universe ought to be, which are at variance with the way the universe actually is. Can you understand that? Once you grasp that, you see that that paradoxes can be rampant. Or to put it another way, if a person understood the laws upon which this universe is constructed, he would never be faced with a paradox. He would simply look at a situation, whatever he saw would be consistent with the laws of the universe. So he would not be struck by this phenomenon of the paradox. So paradox always occurs, and only occurs, when a person knows less than he could know about the laws governing the phenomena that are in front of him. Now, there's a very common paradox that a person walks into at level 3 in TROM. It's so common that I've named it the supermarket paradox. And I thought it might be a good idea to say a few words about it to stop people being puzzled by it. The supermarket paradox occurs when a person gets to level 3 in TROM, and this person believes in such things as memory pictures or mental image pictures. This is how the paradox comes about. The person at level 3 is being encouraged by the procedure to examine various incidents, scenes in their life, and they end up examining these scenes in much greater detail than they've ever before examined them, and hence they start walking into what I call the supermarket paradox. The simplest form of the paradox is that, let us say, a person at level 3 in TROM picks up a memory scene of being in a supermarket, shall we say, at the point where they are purchasing or where they are taking a packet of cornflakes off the shelf and putting it into their trolley. This is the moment in time that they're dealing with at level 3 in TROM at a certain moment in the therapy session. And this is how the paradox comes about. They examine the scene, they look around the scene, there is the cornflakes, they've just put the cornflakes into the trolley, and they look around the supermarket, and they become aware of the various bits and pieces in the supermarket, and they become aware of their body in the supermarket, they become aware of their head in the supermarket, and there they stop. There they walk into a paradox. Or, I should say more precisely, they could very easily walk into a paradox at this point if they happen to believe that their memory scenes, memory pictures are being generated by something in their brain, or some mechanism in their brain, because they will now find that they're looking at the scene, and in the scene they're looking at their body, and their brain is in their body. And how can their brain make a picture of the supermarket, and in the supermarket is their body, and in their body is their brain, and in the brain presumably is the machine or the device that is making the picture or making the recording. But the device must be making a recording of itself, because you look into the scene, look into the supermarket, there's the body in the supermarket, and there in the body is the brain. So and inside the brain would be the device. But how can this be? How can a device in the brain be recording itself? So you say, okay, it records itself. All right, well, that only worsens the situation, because if this device records itself, then it must also be making a recording of recording itself. And if it makes a recording of recording itself, it must make a recording of recording itself, and so on in an infinite regression, in an infinite series. So the situation has now got worse. You don't get out of it that way. It just worsens the situation. We're now into a completely ridiculous situation. No, we're up against a paradox. The paradox is essentially that how can the picture of the supermarket be a figment of the brain when the brain is in the supermarket and is a part of the recording, the memory in the supermarket? That is essentially the paradox. Then, of course, there's the added difficulty of how come all this space, all this vast space in this vast supermarket all gets into one tiny brain, while this tiny brain is in the supermarket. You see, that's a difficulty too. There's a spatial difficulty, simply of this problem of how could such a large object like a supermarket get into such a tiny thing called a brain, while this brain is inside the supermarket, clearly demonstrating that the supermarket, the space of the supermarket, is bigger than the space of the brain. Again, a paradox. See, so we're not only in the supermarket paradox, we once we start on them, we see a whole series of paradoxes, and I'm only naming some of the most obvious ones. Some of the most obvious. So we look around the supermarket, and we see there's the body standing there, taking the cornflakes off the shelf or putting the cornflakes into the trolley, and there's the body, and there's the back of the head of the body, and wait a minute. How can the brain take a memory picture of the back of the head of the body when the brain is inside the body, and this only visual output is through the eyes, and the eyes are at the front of the head? How can it make a recording of the hair at the back of the head? So there it is, you're in the supermarket, you're looking at the back of your body, and you're looking at your hair. No way. Paradox. I could go on, you see. So you say, okay, enough of that. We'll drop that. It isn't. This is not a memory recording made by the brain. This is a mental image picture which is something to do with the human spirit. This has got nothing to do with the body. That's why I can see the body in the scene, is because it's made by me as a human spirit. Fine. Okay, so you remember that when you're in the supermarket taking the cornflakes off the shelf and putting them in your trolley, you are occupying the viewpoint of your body. So presumably, any recording made by you as a human spirit at that moment in time would have been made from that viewpoint. Right? Then how come that in recall, it's very easy for anyone to recall that same scene from 6 foot behind the body, or 2 foot above the body, or 3 foot to the left of the body? How come? Paradox. So you say, okay, no problem there. There's the memory picture. We make the memory picture, and we simply move the picture right to the left, up and down, so we can get various viewpoints in the picture. The whole thing is just an illusion. We're just, the being stays still and moves the picture. Fine, fine, fine. So you solve that paradox, you think. So you look out around the supermarket, and you look out through the wall of the supermarket, and there's a green fence. And on top of the green fence, there's, wait a minute. You've never been outside that supermarket and seen this green fence with your body's eyes. And at the time of the incident, you had no awareness of this green fence. So if you had no awareness of this green fence at the time of the incident, how come you've got a mental recording of this green fence? There it is. You look into this, you go back at that moment to the incident, and you look across at the wall of the supermarket, and you look through the wall of the supermarket, and no doubt there is the green fence, and you look past the green fence, and there is a truck parked, and there are the wheels on the truck. On the other side of the truck, there is a garden fence, and on the other side of that garden fence, there is someone's back garden, and in the garden, there is a lawn, and etc., etc., etc. You look on, the further you look, you just see more and more universe, more and more town, more and more universe, just exactly what you would expect to find if you were there looking through your eyes. Paradox. So you have a machine, and you say, right, I've got a machine, I'm a spiritual being, and I have a machine that makes copies of the whole universe, moment by moment in time. And I'm completely unaware of it. I don't know it's happening, but the pictures are always available to me, and any time I can refer to these pictures, and each picture is a complete picture of the whole universe. Well, no, that's quite a machine. That is quite a machine. All right, let us suppose there is such a machine. Now, if there were such a machine, it would show up sometime in therapy. Yet there's no reports of such machines ever showing up in therapy. And worse is to come. If such a machine existed and you created a copy of such a machine and continued to make copies of such a machine, each copy, by your own postulate, was able to make pictures of the universe and do exactly what the original machine did, eventually you would take over the automaticity of the original machine, and the original machine would start to falter and start to break down, and something would start happening to your memory pictures. But nothing happens. You can create such a machine and play with it and do this with it, and do every known process with this machine. You can create it, uncreate it, move it around, chop it up, bring it together, make it produce pictures, have it stop it, start it, change it, paint it green, do what you like with it. If you get back to the supermarket, you get exactly the same phenomena as you got before you played around with the machine. You haven't changed the machine in the slightest. Now, it's very difficult to conceive of such a machine under those circumstances. Very difficult to conceive of a machine that is your machine that you used to take pictures moment by moment of the whole universe that you have so little control over that you can't do anything about it by your own creativity in present time. Now that in itself is a paradox. Now there's a far, far simpler solution to all of these paradoxes. It's a very, very simple solution, and it solves all of them. That what you're viewing in the supermarket is not a picture of the supermarket. It is not a figment of the brain. It is not something produced by a machine in the brain. It is not something which is produced by a machine in your psyche as a spiritual being. What you're looking at is the actual supermarket at that moment in time as a spiritual being. In other words, you are looking at that moment in time as a spiritual being. Now this explains the whole phenomena. There are no mysteries now. This is why you can look through the wall of the supermarket and see the green fence, why you can see the truck, why you can see the wheels on the truck, and the fence behind the truck, and the person's back garden with the lawn in it. This is why you can see all these things, because you're simply looking through space at that moment of time in the physical universe. You are looking at the real, in other words, you are looking at the real universe at that moment in time as a spiritual being. And there's the whole universe there for you to view. Now, once you grasp that, the paradox ends. You jump the mental image picture theory, that you've got a machine that makes pictures. Exit one imaginary machine. It never did exist. You've now got rid of it. No need for it. No need to keep this piece of useless bric-a-brac in your mind. The machine never did exist, so you dump it. Exit this idea that you've got something in your brain that makes all these wonderful pictures. No such thing. Nothing in there. Nothing in there that makes pictures. No. It's just you. Just got a spiritual being. He can look at scenes. He can look at then scenes. He can look at now scenes. And if the then scenes seem a little less real than the now scenes, it's only because he's made them so. And that ends the supermarket paradox once and for all. And it ends all supermarket paradoxes of that type. All paradoxes of that type, which you can call supermarket paradoxes. On that subject, your ideas are now completely consistent with the way things are. And so you do not suffer paradoxes anymore on the subject of memories, memory pictures, memory scenes, and so on. Once you grasp the truth of it, the paradoxes go. And everything you look at along these and understand along these lines is quite consistent with the way the universe is. You no longer get the puzzles of the supermarket paradox. Now, I hope this article, in conjunction with the theoretical material on this subject given in TROM, will assist you to resolve these various paradoxes. Thank you very much.